welcomes you tonight, and as public service that we provide every year for the Buda and an area community, we enjoy hosting these candidate forums so that we give y'all and the taxpayers of Buda and the surrounding area an opportunity to listen to what our candidates have to say. As the email that went out and whatnot is there's two axioms that are always true. Number one, all politics is local. And number two, if your business isn't politics, politics is going to be in your business. And so we certainly understand that as the business community. So that's one of the reasons we like to host these forums so that everybody can have an opportunity to hear what people have to say. Tonight we're going to focus on 4 races. This is the third of 3 events that we have hosted because of so many races this year and so many candidates. We broke it up and had a group a month ago on the judicial races. We had today at lunch, we had some of the local races, including county judge, county treasurer, and district attorney. And tonight we'll be featuring the races of State Representative District 45, Hays County Clerk. We're going to have all of the county commissioners at one time in precincts 2 and 4, and we'll have Justice of the Peace Precinct 5. The rules tonight are pretty simple. We are being recorded and broadcast live, so be on your best behavior. But what we will do tonight is we're going to ask the candidates. We've scheduled approximately 30 minutes for the state representative and county commissioners races, and approximately 20 minutes for the county clerk and the JP5. We're going to lead off tonight, as you can see, with the county commissioners, because there's 4 of them, and then we're going to do a little quick reset and remove a couple of the microphones. As I said, we have Donna Cartwright will be our question asker, the moderator. She is an ambassador with the Buda Area Chamber of Commerce. And also we have the vice chairman of the chamber, Jim Collins, with Firelight Laser. He will be our timekeeper. As you will notice, candidates, he has 3 sheets there in front of him, and one representing 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then stop talking. So, all right. With that, the candidates were not given the questions in advance, but you will notice that most of them are pretty generic in turn so that everybody gets asked the same questions. Obviously, we are, as I repeat, we are recording and we are broadcasting so that we will replay this throughout until Election Day. So, let me get started. The race for county commissioner, as we said, we have 2 precincts, precincts 2 and 4. Hays, this part of the county was represented by County Commissioner Mark Jones, but under redistricting and because of our growth, part of our district went south and part of our district has gone west. So we still have parts of Buda. Buda in this area is represented technically by 2 different commissioners. Precinct 2, which is the old part going south, and Precinct 4, which is the area going west to Dripping Springs. So with that, I'm going to read the little information, and I'm going to introduce each of the candidates, and then, and our executive director is reminding me, as happened today, please silence your cell phones. Take a moment. As everyone knows, it happened to me today at lunch when Rebecca was calling. Anyway, that's it. The county commissioner is responsible for road and bridges within their precincts and make policy-making budget decisions. 4 commissioners, elected from a quarter of the county's population, serve along with the county judge on the commissioner's court. Tonight you have 2 candidates in Precinct 2 and 2 candidates in Precinct 4. In Precinct 2, you have Michelle Gutierrez Cohen. Dr. Michelle Gutierrez Cohen has lived in Hays County for a combined 30 years. She has 20-plus years working in the private and public sector in supply management. She has a bachelor's in business administration, an MBA, and a doctorate in management and organizational leadership. She is also founder and executive director of Hays Latinos United. By the way, clapping is okay. We also have Mike Gonzalez. Mike, instead of Michael, he corrected me. Now, just to be sure, we want you to know that they provided us these intros. So as you know, he was rated the best mayor in Kyle ever had, at least by 2 people.
How did he deliver the line? I told him the key is a delivery.
That's right. Mike Gonzalez served as mayor of Kyle from 2005 to 2011 during a period of explosive growth that saw Seton Hospital, HEB Plus, an FM 1626 extension, and the replacement of 4 IH-35 overpasses. He also knows a lot about finance and economic development. In our county commissioners precinct 4, we have Walt Smith. First elected by the citizens of Hays County in 2018, Walt Smith serves as Hays County Commissioner for Precinct 4, representing Dripping Springs, Driftwood, and portions of Buda. In his capacity, he also serves as a county representative on the West Travis County Public Utilities Authority, the Dripping Springs Tax Increment Reinvestment Zones 1 and 2, the Council of Urban Counties, and a member of the Capital Area Council of Governments Air Coalition. Lastly, Susan Cook. Susan has spent the last 20 years attending Commissioners Court, groundwater district meetings, and has been a member of groups focused on responsible and economically sound development. She has been fighting to preserve our water, our small town charm, and our more laid-back way of life here in Hays County. Susan seeks to bring advocacy inside and not just outside the Commissioners Court. With that, I present your Hays County Commissioner candidates.
Thank you, John. So as John said, my name is Donna Courtwright. I'm going to be doing some moderating with you tonight, and I'd like to explain to you the format, how we're going to handle the questions and the statements. So your opening comments, each of you will get 2 minutes for your opening statement. Tell us about what you hope to do when elected. And then we're going to have 3 questions. Each answer will be for 2 minutes for each candidate. Then you will each get a closing statement for 1 minute. Any questions? Okay. With that, I'm going to ask Susan to get started, and we'll go from left to right. Susan, start now.
Thank you. Well, nice to meet y'all. I got into this race originally because I was really concerned about our water resources and how development and water resources are related. And the more I've learned, I've realized that a lot of the things going on in our county, I suspect this happens everywhere, these decisions are made for us, not by us. Planning companies, road companies come to our county commissioners court and suggest certain kinds of road projects, suggest what we ought to be doing. These decisions and the way our future unfolds should come from us, not be dictated to us. I've been fighting for years for responsible development, for economically sound ideas, protecting the economic base that we already have. For instance, our agricultural base is not negligible in Hays County, and yet many developments destroy any kind of capacity for our continued agricultural development at the expense of a future, actually. I've kind of always said that any society that paves over its farmland is risking kind of a dire future at some point. And I really don't think we should do things that way. I want to work for my neighbors. I want to work for my friends. I want to protect the water. I want to protect our small town charm. And we still have that here. You know, they don't have that in Travis County much. They've, torn down their downtown and rebuilt a very lovely new one, which bears no resemblance to the old one. I don't want to see that happen to Buda. I know y'all have fought it for years. I don't want to see it happen to Dripping Springs. There's a contingent fighting that right now.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Next, we have Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Buda Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum and inviting me to the forum as with these candidates. Like John said, I've been in this county for a combined 30 years. I was born in Austin, moved to Hays County in the 80s with my family and in Needawal. we actually purchased, with my family, 15 acres, split it 3 ways. My grandparents lived in the front, my aunt, uncle in the middle, and my parents and ourselves in the back of the land. So as a teenager who went to Hayes High School, I remember whenever someone came to come visit me, like a friend, my grandfather would call my father and say, hey, someone's coming up the road. You know, so there was never any privacy on the land, but it's how I grew up, with close family, close neighbors all around me. Like I said, I went to school here. I went to Buda Elementary in the 6th grade, and I went all the way through. I graduated from Jack C. Hayes in '89. And from there, I started going to college and became a mom. And at the age of 40, I actually went back to school after my daughter was born, and I got my bachelor's degree. I got my master's degree. I got my doctorate degree in 8 years. By the time I was 48, I was done. So imagine a Latina woman like myself, raising a family, going to work, and going to school all at the same time. It is a challenge, but I did it, right? So I've always been interested in getting into politics and running for office, because I do recognize the lack of representation that exists for communities of color, and I want to be part of that change. We have not had a Latina in this position ever, and I want to be the first one to be elected in that position. And I care about public health, and I care about law enforcement, and specifically public health because of the pandemic. I saw what happened to the communities of color when that pandemic hit. And so I want to do what I can to help close those disparities that exist in our county.
Great, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mike. Mike, your opening statement.
How's it going, everybody? Great to see everybody here. One of the things, so we only have 2 minutes. I cut all the jokes out, I'm sorry. So you're going to have to put up with just my story here. I think it's important for you to know exactly who you are electing. I want you to think personally yourself, what was the first job you ever had? Just think yourself personally. The first job you ever had where you were actually getting paid. I'll share mine real quick. My very first job was working for a relative. They were doing apartments. I was living down in South Texas. I spent one hot summer putting up insulation all summer. It's just imagine, you're dripping with sweat, you're getting that insulation all over you, and that's when it hit me, I'm going to college. This is not going to be for me. So I went to college, Texas State, got my degree in finance. After I got out of there, I worked for the Texas Department of Banking. I was a bank examiner, got to travel all over the great state of Texas, auditing banks, making sure they were financially solvent, make sure they weren't taking advantage of their consumers. I was a financial analyst for a military contractor. But the one thing I always was interested in was in politics. Because in politics, I saw that's the one thing you could do that you can have a positive impact on the most number of people. So when I first moved to Kyle with my wife, started getting active on the boards. I was on planning and zoning, on the water advisory board, countless other boards. Then the opportunity came up to run for mayor, and I got elected. And I was very fortunate to be elected there because it was at a time when we were going through enormous growth. There was a lot of issues that we were faced because we had all this residential move in, but we didn't have the infrastructure. So within my 2 terms there, we were able to do City and Hospital, HB+. We did the full overpass, working with TxDOT, working with the City of Buda, working with all our neighbors. Much of the infrastructure we see there today was done during that administration. I got to lead when we had a great council. A lot of the council members are here. It was just, to me, that's what's amazing, is as an elected official, you can have such a positive good on families, and that's why I'm running here today.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. Next, we have Walt for your opening statement.
Thank you. One of the things that I did when I moved here 10 years ago was that I wanted to get involved in the chamber because my dad had been a chamber member my whole life. Though he passed away in 2003, he was a small business owner. He was a rancher, owned a fencing and hay baling company. And if you've ever done either one of those jobs, I can tell you there's a reason I went to college too. My dad never finished the 7th grade, but he proved to me that he could be successful in business. And so when I graduated school, I actually moved to Washington, D.C., and I worked there for 15 years in Congress and with my own business for various members of Congress. I started out working for Chet Edwards, a Democrat from Central Texas. Ended up working for Larry Combest and Henry Bonilla, Republicans who represented agriculture in Texas. My undergraduate degree and my master's degree was in agricultural development. So that's kind of where my heart is, and that's what took me to D.C. When I came back here, one of the first things I did was join the chamber. And it was very important to me. I was fortunate enough, within the first few years of being in the chamber, I was actually in the Leadership Dripping Springs Class 1. And whenever I say the chamber, forgive me, because I live in Dripping Springs. I've only been a member of the Buda Chamber for a year, but I was in Leadership Dripping Springs Class 1. I've since been an instructor every year for that program. I was a finalist for Business Person of the Year twice. From the chamber, I was a finalist twice for Hometown Hero through the chamber, and I've been named Lion of the Year, involved in Rotary, Lions Club, Ducks Unlimited, Wild Game Board, Ed Foundation Board for about 9 years now, and just love my community, and that's the reason I chose to run for this office 4 years ago, and would hope that I could continue to represent our community for 4 more. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you all for your opening statements. Now we're going to move to the first round of questioning. And question number 1, you will each get 2 minutes. And I would like to start on this side of the table and work to the left. So the first question is, what do you see are the 2 most important issues that you will focus on if elected county commissioner?
You know, I think that's an interesting question because dependent upon what part of the precinct you look at, there's such a diverse need for different things, but all of the needs that we have here are pursuant to population. It's dictating everything that we do, whether that's assisting schools with getting roadways in front of them, moving people back and forth, the water issues that we have, the wastewater issues that we have. The fact is that population is everything. I've really put a focus since I've been in office on trying to balance the culture and community we have here with the growth that we have. And I think that's the hardest thing that we have. People are moving to our area because they love the culture, because they love the community that we have here. And how do you preserve that when you don't shut the door behind you? I'm not sure how you do it. It's a hard balancing act. One thing that I'm very proud of is we're the first county in the state of Texas that hopefully Q1 next year will have a conservation development title to our development program. We actually did a test area here in Buda that we looked at. It's actually between Kyle and Buda at different various ranch lands. We did what we call charrettes, and those charrettes are case studies to look at what would it look like with a traditional development and what would it look like with a conservation development. And how much less water would we use? How many fewer homes would we do? What kind of impact financially would it have on the community? Because every one of those houses that comes is somebody that's going to buy a sandwich at the local sandwich shop, or somebody who is going to fill up their gas at the local gas station. And so we understand the need for that customer base for all of our members of the chamber, but we also have to understand the need of balancing how they get here and what it looks like whenever they decide to come here.
All right, thank you, Walt. Mike, do you want me to repeat the question, or do you?
I guess repeat the question, just for the audience sake.
Sure. So again, question 1 is, what do you see are the 2 most important issues that you will focus on as county commissioner?
So I would say the first issue would have to be really ties again to the growth, especially what we see along the I-35 corridor. Something I'm very familiar with, being mayor for the city of Kyle during that explosive growth also. And the 2 things about the growth, I would say, the first thing is the roads. You know, obviously we need to address them directly, but no one entity can do it alone, because when you look at all the overlapping jurisdictions that we have on the roads, you have to have the city, you have to have the county, you have to have the state, all working together. At the end of the day, it's the same taxpayers, but they all have different funding sources and they all have different priorities. So definitely, being able to manage the roads, because we know more growth is coming. We need to get ahead of that curve. And that's why I was excited to run. Again, all the experience I had from serving on the Campbell board, from working with TxDOT, all those contacts, I can put to use right at the beginning to really start building up the infrastructure that we really desperately need throughout the new Precinct 2 here. The other part I would say is my policies are pretty simple. I love my precinct because it's really at the core, it's working families. So I'm going to represent the issues that are important to working families. And one of them has to be, reducing the burden on taxes. right? So the other part of the growth, I would say, is that it's not just the growth of the community, but the growth of government. A lot of times we may see some spillover of some of the policies coming in. We see other larger governments, they start creating all these different kinds of programs. Well, I've yet to see a program that once started ever goes away. And all that means is more and more tax burden for citizens. Again, I'm a very practical person. I'm all about doing what actually works and what gets results for working families in Precinct 2.
Thank you, Mike. Now we're going to turn to Michelle. Michelle, what do you see are the two most important issues that you will focus on when elected county commissioner?
Well, if anybody knows me and knows where my heart is, it is public health. That is the whole reason why I decided to run for this office. Because of the pandemic, we saw what happened when people got sick and they could not go to work. They could not visit your businesses. They could not pay their bills. They could not put food on the table. And it's all tied to their health and livelihood, right? So what I saw is, personally, the county not doing enough to provide basic resources to the community. So that is why the organization was formed in the first place, to provide free PPE to communities that could not afford it. And so we started distributing those resources. We moved into COVID testing. We moved into COVID vaccines because I understand the importance of keeping our community well. That is how our businesses were able to open again. That's how people were able to go back to work, pay their bills, feed their family, get their kids back in school, right? So it begins with public health. So I don't think our county is doing enough to support our Hayes Health Department. That, they need more resources, they need more money, they need more staffing. That is going to be one of my main focuses, is making sure that our county health department gets those resources. Secondly, the infrastructure is, of course, key. If you watch the news every day, what do you see? Oh, coming out of Buda, it's going to be 75 minutes. The next day, it's going to be 80 minutes to get to Austin, right? So we obviously have some serious issues with our infrastructure, our road infrastructure. And we see the city of Kyle about, to have a bond on the ballot for roads, right? Because they are so bad in East Kyle, East Buda. You hear the community complain about it constantly and asking for help, okay? And I know it's going to take partnerships like with the city and like Buda and Kyle to get the resources. I don't know how we're going to fix these roads, honestly, with the amount of growth that's already here, but we need to do something. So those are my two issues.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Susan, now.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. I think we deal mostly here, and it's a bigger issue, often in both directions. Water, and it's competing quality, which is growth. And development. And development is not always progress. I know people like to say, oh, development, that's a good thing. Well, it has to be the right kind of development. And it has to be paired with what the land can handle. It has to be paired with what the water resources can handle. It has to be climate change ready also. We have got, in Hayes County and throughout this country, to build our homes, our roads. Everything that we as human beings build on this land has got to be ready for the changes that seem to be happening. We're getting hotter. We're getting drier. There's worse flooding. Let's build our homes to meet this challenge. Let's build our homes to last. And then the water. We've got to build our homes with rainwater harvesting already on every new building that gets built in this community. We've got to build our neighborhoods, those houses that aren't, suitable perhaps for their own solar arrays. Just like we set aside parklands, let's set aside in every new development an area for community solar arrays. We can produce our energy right there in our own communities. So, competing, dual growth, development, water.
All right, thank you so much. It just so happens that question number 2 is going to be dealing with water.
Oh, I could talk
And
about
you
it all
just
day.
addressed part of it. Water is a major concern in Hayes County and elsewhere in the country, in Texas. Both the protection and availability to handle growth. What are your plans for dealing with this issue? And I'm going to go to Mike first.
Perfect. Again, one of the first involvements when I was in Kyle was our water advisory board. So we got to talk to all the local conservation districts. I know everything there is to know about how water works, how the conservation districts work, the costs. So when I was mayor, that was one issue we were running to, because what we call in the cities, you have to have a portfolio of water, right? Because you can't have just one source of water, because if you have a drought, the conservation district comes in and says, hey, I know your permit was this, now it gets cut. Well, you have tens of thousands of citizens that still need water, right? So that's why when I was mayor, we initiated that Carrizo Wilcox. We joined with Buda, San Marcos, and other entities here to run a pipeline out to the aquifer out there to bring it in over here. Because when you look at the reservoirs that we have in the state, the largest reservoirs often are over the least populated areas. So you need to find a way to bring them in. So because there's two parts to it. It's not just the availability of water, but it's the affordability of water. A lot of people don't think about that part. Surface water is probably one of the cheapest. Once you have to start drilling for it, it gets way more expensive. And that gets passed on to the ratepayers. So that's what it comes down to. So for us, instead of for the city of Kyle, our policy was, hey, we need a diverse portfolio of different water sources. So that way we can always be turning them on and turning them off. But at the very first level was, hey, if we brought in water from outside the county over a place that wasn't that populated, it benefits the entire county, right? Because not everyone's as dependent as that. But at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is you really need to kind of navigate all the jurisdictions and all the different entities that control water in the state. And you just need to find actual solutions for your citizens.
Great, thanks, Mike. Now I'm going to go to Walt. Walt, what are your plans to deal with the water issue?
Well, I think that the first things first, for the last two sessions, we've really fought hard to get additional authority for the Hayes Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. Counties in Texas are traditionally very, very weak statutorily when it comes to water. We don't have the statutory authority to do a lot of the things that we want. That's the reason we have to be ingenuitive in trying to address those issues. We can work hard to bring water in and bring additional water resources to the county, and thankfully, as in my position on West Travis County PUA board, we're actually trying to do that to the northern part of the county, bring additional water sources here. The problem that we have is that not only countywide, but nationwide, about 70% of our water goes into irrigation. So if we really want to cut back on water usage here in Texas specifically, we've got to cut back on that irrigation use. Even in times not of drought, that's what we use. It peaks, in times of heat in the summer here, but we have to look at usage. We have to look at the things like I'm talking about on the conservation development plan. We, as a county, already mandate, certain size lots have to do water, rainwater capture. We have some rules pursuant to that where we don't allow for certain things. But we have to incentivize, since we can't enforce things like a city or the state can, we have to try to incentivize them. And whenever I say incentivize them, I don't mean using taxpayer money. What I mean is actually giving those incentives, allowing those developers on the front end to recoup some of the funding that they would initially have to pay to the county to incentivize those homeowners in their development to actually do that rainwater capture, to prevent putting in wells. And under the conservation development plan that we've developed, we can do that through the use of PIDs, by allowing them to do PIDs on that property so our current taxpayers don't have to contribute to that. It would be any future resident paying for whatever improvements there would be.
Okay, great. Thank you, Walt. Now I'm going to go to Michelle. Michelle, what would you do to address the water issues that we're facing?
Well, recently I read a report that by 2040 we are going to exceed, our need is going to exceed our supply. Okay, so we are already very close to running out of water. So we need innovative solutions like rain harvesting. Why aren't there more rain harvesting units on certain parts of the county? I remember growing up in Needawal, and my water was white growing up. So we've had a water problem in this county for a very long time. And even recently, neighbors have complained to me about their water being turned off. there's a water leak, and they're not getting their water without any notice. So there is a serious water problem going on here, and I am not an expert in water, right? I would depend on those who are experts. My dad grew up working in the water business. He was a civil engineer, so I know all about wastewater, but for me, I'm a researcher. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to seek solution. I'm going to talk to the experts. I'm a problem solver. So I'm going to figure out what ways can we do to bring water in to those communities that need it the most all over the county. Because we are in a dire situation. And all those who watch the water conservation and the droughts, they are sounding the alarm on everything. And so we need to do something quickly and take some action and find those resources to get ahead of the curve, or we're going to be out of water by 2040. And so we need to do something about that. So as a commissioner, that's what I would do. I'm going to just actively start working with the Water Development Board. What opportunities do they have for us at the county level, and what solutions do they have for us?
Great, thanks, Michelle. Okay, Susan, you touched on it, but you may want to add something. You get your 2 minutes if you
Sure.
like.
I'd like to push back a little bit against the idea of piping in water as our major solution to anything. One, the donor areas like Burleson County right now, that has a giant well field that's pumping all of those people's groundwater out and sending it to here and eventually to San Antonio, and then even they're going north to Pflugerville and Georgetown. Those people are not amused with this idea, and you can understand why. I mean, if it was happening to us, there was a proposal, we knocked it down. It's just not a long-term plan. Conservation is the cheapest water. The water we don't use, just like the energy we don't use, is the cheapest energy, the cheapest water. We have got to, and this is how the county can do things and has failed to do it over and over again. Year after year, we try to embed good, sound, like rainwater harvesting mandated on all new developments. It gets knocked down by the developer class, the growth machine comes in and says, no, that's too expensive. I think that making our homes better and ready for climate change is simply got to be the cost of doing business in Hays County. We can't listen to, oh, we can't afford that. We can't afford not to have good, sturdy, reliable buildings and a good, reliable way of life going forward. Conservation. We have got to stop building neighborhoods surrounded with grass. We have got to build conservation into every single aspect of our lives. It's just the way things are going to be. We can't look like Houston. We're not Houston. Even Houston isn't Houston anymore. Thanks.
Very good, thank you. Now, in the interest of time, instead of 2 minutes for round 3, we're going to go down to 1 minute. And the last question is going to be, again, addressing roads and traffic and transportation throughout Hays County. So let me start with Michelle. Michelle, how would you address that issue?
Well, I think part of it, I know Kyle is, like I said, they've already got a bond on the ballot to improve their roads. I'm a little concerned about that road plan because it consists of a lot of roundabouts. And those are not normal features on the east side, a roundabout. And the way that they're constructing it, I'm just not completely sold on the solution, that is a solution. I know we definitely need to fix our roads. We need to make them wider. We need to put sidewalks in, and we need to put lighting in, and we need to address them. I mean, you can read every neighborhood post about the complaints of neighbors taking forever to get their kid dropped off from school and get to work, right? So for me, it's working with the city to see what we could do within the city limits of both Kyle and Buda, and also working with the state on what we can on what we can do to improve our roads. But it's got to be very strategic. Like I would not directly work on the Layman and Button Creek as your first project because that is going to be a disaster. So I think it has to be very strategic in how we fix these roads.
Got it. Okay, great. So let me go to Susan now for the traffic question.
Roads are very local. Communities like this one need more roads. Communities like Wimberley, they don't want more roads. Most of the people in Dripping Springs aren't looking for more roads. Again, though, this is one of those times when people are making plans for us. They're not asking us. It is not a cookie cutter. We need roads in certain part of this county. We need real solutions to traffic, and easy ones, easy, inexpensive ones, like widening roads, like little turnoffs, turn lanes, all kinds of things like that, not necessarily giant roads. And we don't need to be choosing roads based on who gave a certain commissioner money to build that road.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Mike, do you want to
Sure.
go ahead?
Again, my time as mayor, working with TxDOT on Campo and all that, that was a good chunk of what I devoted my time to, and the results are obvious. Just getting the state to redo overpasses is a miracle. But getting to that level, I don't know if you all remember former Mayor Trube. We literally sat here at Dan's with a schematic from I-35 because we were arguing who was going to get the on and off ramps. TxDOT finally said, hey, what, we don't care, this is a certain number, you all figure it out. So we literally there at Dan's were lining them all up, and then we took them back to our councils and they got approved. But that's what it takes. It takes really understanding, having that network, not just at the city level, but also at the state. You know, when you can pick up the phone and say, hey, we need to get this address, because you already have those contacts, it makes a huge difference. It saves time. 1626 was the best example of us doing that also. 1626, our connection part was on a map for decades. And everyone said, someday they're going to do it. Someday, well, we got it done. And it was getting it done through a private sector development, TxDOT, and getting access to low-interest financing. So that's what I would say is, again, mobility is quality of life. Mobility is about economic development. You need somebody who can not try to figure it out, but knows how to do it right now.
Very good, thank you, Mike. Okay, Walt, got the final say for 1
Sure.
minute.
Sure, I appreciate it. You know, I'm very proud of the master transportation plan that Hays County has put together. And that master transportation plan was developed over about a year and a half with direct input from people who are sitting in this room, from the Buda City Council, from the Hays Consolidated ISD. And we did that with those partners and those stakeholders countywide to identify where they had issues, where they wanted specific types of roads, what types of roads they want. But that plan is only the first step in a much longer process. I've been proud to work with others, even at the state and federal level through Campo and our regional partners as county commissioner to identify those areas and prioritize them. I mean, I think that all of us in this room, maybe not all of us, but I know I agree that 45 is a needed asset for our area. I can promise you that that will be a priority for me as we move forward as the commissioner here, and it will continue to be, just as other projects on the Dripping Springs area of the precinct will be as well.
Okay. I realize, thank you so much, Walt. I realize that we are touching on a lot of issues that really require way more than 1 or 2 minutes to fully address, and I appreciate the brevity that you all have brought to this. Each of you are going to get your closing statement for 1 minute, and we'll start with Mike.
Okay.
And then we'll go to Michelle, Susan, and Walt.
Great. Again, thank you all for putting this together. I think it's important for citizens to know exactly what the options are. Elections are about choices. The choice I represent is pretty simple. What's important to working families here in Precinct 2 are going to be my priorities. Like I said, I'm a very straightforward person. I'm about actually getting the results for families here, and I definitely have the experience. And that's really what I want to leverage. These terms go by really fast. With my experience, I can kind of hit the ground running and actually start getting the results faster. My priorities are going to be pretty simple again. For homeowners, I want to be sure that we ease the tax burden. Everyone's talking about the taxes rising, and the best way to do that is to have a government focused on the biggest needs that impact the most amount of people. But also, I think the whole thing is a wider level of transparency. Yes, you can get all the information you want by doing a request, but it shouldn't be that hard. You should be able to go online and see exactly what your government's doing. And in fact, when you see exactly what we're doing, you should be proud of us and saying, yeah, we're doing this for you. So that's how I ensure that we keep our priorities aligned with working families.
Thank you, Mike. Michelle?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Chamber, for having this forum. It was a pleasure. And like Mike, I agree that everyone should know what their choices are. Like I said, I'm a longtime resident of this county. I grew up here. I'm what they call homegrown, so I've been working in my community for a long time. I didn't wait for an election to do something for my community. I've been doing it. And even if I were not to win the race, I'm still going to continue the work because my heart is with this community and I see the work that needs to be done. And I'm a problem solver. I think that's why God gave me a big nose, because he knew that I was going to get doors slammed in my face. Okay, so he prepared me for this. So I'm going to continue to work hard, continue to advocate for everyone, and be present in the community. A lot of people that live in this side of our east side of the community don't even know what a commissioner does. They have no clue. So I want to be a more in-your-face kind of commissioner, and so you know exactly where I stand, and you know exactly what I'm fighting for, which is them.
Very good. Thank you so much. Susan, your closing statement.
I'm in this to protect my home. That's where it started. I got it started because I was in this to protect my well. That's where it started. But it's fanned out. And I see that the same things that bother me, like higher taxes, worrying about my well, these are things that all of my neighbors across the county worry about. And I want to be a voice, an independent voice, not a voice of Democrats or Republicans. I'm an independent, and I truly am an independent. And I think that that's what we need at the Commissioners Court. I think we need people who are willing to communicate what is going on in their neighborhoods and bring it to the Commissioners Court and to listen to the people. I think my main job as a commissioner is to listen, and then to enact what people want. Again, let's plan our own future, y'all. It's ours. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan. Walt, your statement.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to John and Donna and Jim for putting this together. I really appreciate it. This is one of the few forums that we're having, so I do appreciate that. I'll tell you that I'm very proud of the job that I've done for the last 4 years in Hays County. We've enacted the lowest tax rate since 1998. I would venture to guess that half our residents weren't born in 1998, looking at all the young families we have. But the fact of the matter is our biggest priority should be the quality of life for those families that are moving here. And that is what we take to work every day. I was very proud during the pandemic to found the Small Business Assistance Program that we did in Hays County. I was very happy to carry the fight forward to get our businesses reopened here. That was not a simple task. And if you read the Texas Tribune or any of our local papers, you'll know the fight that I took in that. I'm a fighter for our residents, and I'm a fighter to maintain our quality of life here and improve it for those who are moving here without putting that burden on our current residents. And so I just ask that I appreciate the time today and ask that for your support in November.
Great. Thank you all very much for your inputs.
Let's give these guys a big round of applause. That was some great work. Candidates, thank you. We're going to take about a 2-minute break while we break down 2 of the microphones, and we'll get started with our county clerk candidates. The main duties of the county clerk are to serve as clerk of the county court and the county commissioners court, act as recorder of deeds and other instruments, issue marriage licenses, and take depositions. Sometimes those two go together. The candidates for county clerk are Linda Duran. Linda Duran has more than 22 years of experience in county government, starting as an intern, then mastering every job up the ladder to assistant county clerk. She feels the office is a vital part of county operations, and it serves as the trusted keeper of all personal records. Elaine Cardenas. Elaine Cardenas is our Hays County clerk, is a proven leader, ready to address the challenges ahead. Previously, Dr. Cardenas worked for many years as a senior executive for some of the nation's most respected social policy research firms, managing large, complex government programs. She has an MBA and a PhD. I give you your Hays County Clerk candidates.
Thank you. Okay, so let me explain the format. Each of you will get 2 minutes for your opening statement. We're going to have questions for each of you. Depending on the time, right now, we're going to allocate 2 minutes per question. So again, you're going to get an opening statement for 2 minutes. We're going to have 3 questions that you'll each be given 2 minutes to answer. So let me go ahead and start with Linda, and then we'll hear from Elaine for your opening statement.
My name's Linda Duran. I've had 22 years experience in the clerk's office. I was born and raised in Hayes County. Never saw a need to leave such a great place. Nothing has hindered my dedication to the job, my 4 children, or even a time when I had a trach. I still showed up to work. I was dedicated. There has not been a setback that I will not overcome. I feel that I am the best candidate for county clerk because of the experience. I've worked for 5 county clerks. So things change, and if you stay with it, sorry, breathing difficulties, challenges. By working with multiple clerks, I've learned, I've trained, and I've built my character and myself from them. I took them serious as mentors. The county clerk's office does handle more than just commissioners' courts. It also is the clerk to county court at laws 1, 2, and 3, where I spent most of my time frame in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to hear from Elaine with your opening statement.
Thank you. Most people don't know what a county clerk does, even after John's description of the job, but it is a really important job. My name is Elaine Cardenas, running for re-election as the Hayes County Clerk, and I'm responsible for the county's most important records, including many of yours, your births, deaths, marriages, and your property records, among other things. And you may not have much contact with my office, but you'll probably come there for some of the most important events in your life, your births and marriages, for example. Unfortunately, the records are vulnerable to many kinds of threats. The Department of Homeland Security has identified county clerks' offices as targets for many major crimes, including identity theft, property theft, and even cyber attacks from abroad. So the security of records is one of my top priorities, and I work closely with our IT director. We do have a very robust system in the county. I want to assure you of that. With multiple off-site storage facilities, and we continue to monitor all of that. I've recently put in place a fraud alert program to give added sense of protection for your property records. Another priority of mine is making it as easy as possible to do business with my office. So you'll soon be able to get any of your vital records online without ever having to come into the office. And we will be one of the very first counties in the states to issue marriage licenses remotely. I'm also concerned about money. Most people don't know my office supports a lot of what we do with funds that we raise through fees we charge for our services. But I keep my eye on the money anyway and find many opportunities for saving money. We're automating one of our key functions, which will save us an enormous amount of money. So I hope I'll have your vote to continue what I've started. Thank you.
Okay, thank each of you for your opening statement. We're now going to go to questions, and you'll each have 2 minutes. And I'm going to start with Elaine this time. The question is, what do you see are the 2 most important issues that you will focus on as county clerk?
Well, you've already heard people talking about the explosive growth of our county, and that's inescapable, the impact on all of us. But along with that come unprecedented job shortages and other threats, some of the social changes that are tearing our our country apart right now, and they will interact in ways that we can't really predict. But I think the two things that I would want to focus on, the two issues are, is sort of balancing technology and what technology can do to help us address the variable and unpredictable demand that we're facing. But at the same time, we need to take care of our staff. And our staff members are leaving in large numbers, not because they don't like the place, because they do, but because they need more money. The salaries are just woefully low. They can go down the street to any one of the fast food restaurants and earn $2 an hour more. They need to take care of their families, and they're not buying necessities. They're not going on vacations because of gas. They're moving in with their parents when they're 40 years old. It's just not acceptable. They need better wages and better pay. And they also need to be recognized for the complexity and challenges of their jobs. They're not just clerks, as I've heard them referred to in the county. They perform responsible jobs that require them to diffuse angry situations, to serve customers well, to use multiple databases, to prepare financial reports, and so on and so forth, much more than an entry-level clerk does. So I want to take care of them, make sure that their value is recognized and they're paid appropriately.
Thank you. Okay, Linda, would you like for me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So what do you see are the two most important issues that you will focus on if elected county clerk?
The first one would be staffing the office. Like she mentioned, staff has left. A total of 25 within the last 13 months out of a 31 staff team. So that is a significant problem. Serving as a public servant for 22 years, or actually 24 years, October 1st, you don't do the job because of the pay. You do the job because that's your passion. That's what you're called to do, serve others. So I believe I can recruit the right people to fill those positions, train them personally, so that way they can assist you when you come in. The second important thing that I would focus on is reopening the satellite offices. With the growth, we cannot have 3 vacant offices. The constituents you want to go to your hometown to do for your county clerk needs. You don't want to have to travel 45 minutes to get a document, to file a document, to speak to a person because phones aren't being answered. And actually, to add to that, I would also change the business hours to where you don't do that drive to a San Marcos location and arrive to a locked door.
Okay, very good. Okay, now the next question is, what safety measures I'm going to go ahead and start with Elaine on this one. Elaine, what safety measures do you currently have or would you like to see put into place to protect the public information that you are custodian of?
Oh, well, one of the things that I plan to do is to engage the Department of Homeland Security. They have a number of different assessments that they can do and will do for free to the county, where they'll come out and look over everything that we're doing and identify any potential vulnerabilities. And I want to do that in concert with our IT director, but that's one of the primary things. And there are a few things that we can do, I think, to tighten up security in the office, such as, the two-factor authentication, I think they call it, on everything that we do. So they're just a number of little things like that, but I think the starting point is the Homeland Security assessments.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Linda, I'll repeat the question. What safety measures do you currently have or would you like to see put into place to protect the public information that as county clerk you would be custodian of?
The first thing I would do is remove access from employees' personal computers. That's the first security breach that I know of. Employees that are working from home are accessing the databases from their personal equipment. Another thing I would do for personal security, sorry, I lost my train of thought. To make sure new hires, before they get to actually touch the database, that they are actually taking the security awareness program that the state requires and mandates of each employee. Why allow them to risk the data that we're preserving for a lifetime?
Okay, very good. Question number 3. You've kind of touched on, each of you, a little bit on this, but I'm going to state the question anyway. So I'm going to start with Elaine. What procedures or focus that you currently have will you do differently in the county clerk's office, or what would you like to keep the same?
Well, I think we've put in place a number of things that are working well for us already. We reorganized the staff to more into specialty groups, and that's allowed us to it allows us to train them more quickly for their jobs instead of taking a long time. Previously, everybody was trained to do everything in the office. I think 35 people all knowing everything that our office has to do is way too much and very inefficient. So they're now working in specialized units where they need to learn just a few tasks, and they can build more ownership. We can assign people based on their strengths to the things that they do best and are most suited to. And also we can outfit them and have at their workstations with all of the equipment and materials they need so they don't have to queue up at a central location. It's just much, much, much more efficient, and we'll probably continue to do that. I'm also planning to implement a new service for the public. They call it in this field the Records on the Run, which is a mobility program so that we can reach people who can't access our services easily because they have to stay at home for some reason, have some sort of disability, or they don't have access to Wi-Fi. We want to reach them. There are quite a few out in the community, and so we want to take our services to them. So we're going to try that in the next year.
Very good. Okay, Linda, same question. What procedures would you do differently in the county clerk's office, or what would you like to see kept the same?
So like I touched on, changing office hours, closing at noon on a Friday while the other offices in the building, they have to handle the burden that that office should be dealing with themselves. And I say this because since my leave, September of last year, I now work in the district clerk's office. So I see those customers come in, with complaints, with concerns as to why they're not able to meet timing requirements for their filings. So yes, that's one of them I would change. Second, like Elaine touched, it is good to establish that the employees get dedicated work to what they do. So I would like to see separation, because it is 2 separate divisions housed in one location. The second floor of the government center is a courts floor. So I would like to see the court staff stationed there and the official public record staff stationed at a separate location, maybe a ground location to where elderly public can come in and not have to deal, with an elevator not working in the building.
Okay, very good. You will each get 1 minute for a closing statement to touch on anything that you feel like you want us to know about that was not being covered in the questions. Elaine, I'm going to start with you. 1 minute.
Okay. Well, as you can probably tell, this is not a clerical job, as the title might suggest. It is a senior executive position in the county, And it requires someone with a background in management and leadership who can lead the office forward. And in particular, to prepare us, look forward strategically 10 years to make sure that our office is ready for the challenges that are going to be posed by the enormous growth of our county and the other challenges that accompany that. I do have the background for that. I worked in Washington, D.C. for many years as a senior executive for some of the nation's leading firms, including Gallup. And I led large teams on complex projects. I have many, many resources at my fingertips and tools I can bring to bear on any problems that might come up. I have an MBA and a PhD, and I'm eager to continue what I started. My name again is Elaine Cardenas, running for Hays County Clerk, a re-election as Hays County Clerk, and I hope I'll have your vote. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Linda, your closing statement, please.
Experience is needed. The clerk's office is important. I would like you to know that the leader should have the knowledge that they're holding the office for. And that's what I have gained through that 22 years of experience. Hays County is not a corporation. We're a county government. Once you start treating it like a corporation, there's going to be expenses involved. And who pays for that expense? Taxpayers. So I believe I am the one you want in office, as I ran it for the last 3 years for Elaine Cardenas. I kept it together, and in my short absence, 25 employees have left. So that should speak of my leadership.
Okay, very good. We thank you all very much for your inputs.
All right, great job. Thank you, candidates, for county clerk. We're going to take just a couple-minute break while we bring up our candidates for Justice of the Peace. All right, now we're on to Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5. Now, the Justice of the Peace presides over the Justice Court in cases involving misdemeanors, small civil disputes, landlord-tenant disputes, and more. Thank Judge Judy. They also conduct inquests and may perform marriage ceremonies. Your candidates for Justice of the Peace are Sandra Bryant. For more than 15 years, Sandra Bryant has demonstrated strong passion, commitment, and leadership in serving her community. She obtained her associate's degree in law enforcement from Austin Community College, her bachelor's degree in criminal justice at Texas State University, and a master's degree in human service counseling from Liberty University. She's married to some guy named Ray Bryant. Karen Marshall is a proven professional. She has over 26 years of public service experience in the areas of law, legislation, and leadership. Throughout her career, she worked for 2 Texas Attorneys General and helped thousands of Texans and children through her work with the Texas legislature and statewide leaders. I give you your candidates for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5.
Thanks.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to explain the format. You'll each get 2 minutes for your opening statements. We will have 3 questions. The first 2 questions will be 2 minutes each. The third question will be 1 minute each. So we're going to start with your opening comments, and I'm going to start with Sandra with your opening statement.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sandra Bryant. I'm running for Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5 here in Buda. I have lived in the community or Hays County for 18 years, 11 in Kyle and 7 in Buda. I love my community. I love where I live. I've been serving my community in various capacities, such as the Buda Lions Club. I'm the membership chair there. The Buda Police Foundation, I'm the president. I am the president of my HOA. I have been for the past 5 years, and I'm the past president of Hays CSD Council of PTAs. That's overseeing 23 PTAs, and then I have my own nonprofit called Keeping Communities Connected, in which we disseminate information to our communities through social media, as well as host a mentoring program. I also have served 2-year terms, 6 years, as a school board trustee at large for the Hays CISD district. I am a public servant, and as John mentioned, I do have an associate's degree in law enforcement, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and a master's in human service counseling. In addition to that, I've graduated from the Buda Police Academy, as well as the Hayes Sheriff Citizens Academy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Now I'm going to turn to Karen for your opening statement, please.
I'm Karen Marshall, your conservative candidate for Justice of the Peace. I don't just have community service and education. I've worked it. I prepared for this job professionally my entire 26-year career in public service. I've practical legal experience, real life experience. I've worked for the highest authority, legal authority in the state of Texas, the Attorney General, not just one, but two. I've worked with the Texas legislature and statewide leaders enacting laws, policies, and programs that everyday people need in their lives, your lives, like jobs, wages, childcare resources, and other fundamentals of living. This experience taught me the nuances of lawmaking. I understand it, and I can cite it. I'm a trained mediator, which will be beneficial towards fairness and to bring civil resolutions to complex disputes. As a certified project manager, I can manage the increased caseload, the court, and office at optimum efficiency. I have a paralegal degree studying legal practice, which directly relates to the duties of the Justice of the Peace. I want to bring all my experience, all my knowledge, and all my resources to serve you. I want to bring my expertise from working at the state and federal level down to this level, the local community.
Very good. Thank you so much, Karen. Now we're going to turn to our first round of questions. And I'm going to start with you, Karen, to give the first answer. You'll get 2 minutes. What do you see are the two most important issues that you will focus on as Justice of the Peace?
Well, there's good news. Judge Doyle is leaving the office in very good shape. But this is a new era for Precinct 5. We are experiencing an explosive growth in population, traffic, crimes, and now a deadly drug crisis. As an experienced liaison, I will collaborate with law enforcement, prosecutors, and the community leaders for solutions to address these issues. Now, there will be an increased caseload because of these issues, but I will have no issue with that because of my project management experience. Additionally, I guess another challenge, but it's an opportunity, is we need to make the court more accessible to our citizens. So I plan to provide you with forms and guidelines on the web before you go to court.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen.
Can you
Sandra,
repeat the
would you like-
question?
Yes, I'll repeat the question. What do you see as the two most important issues that you will focus on or face as Justice of the Peace?
As Justice of the Peace, I believe the two most important issues that we're facing is to continually moving the docket efficiently and effectively. We need to make certain that our citizens are heard in a timely manner and we're listening. The other thing that I would focus on is being available. As you know, Justice of the Peace do inquest. And inquest means you need to be available 24/7, and you need to be able to coordinate with the law enforcement as well as all other agencies. And so I'll be available to do that 24/7. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Now we're going to go to round 2 of the questioning. Again, it'll be 2 minutes for your response. And I'm going to start with you this time,
That's fine.
Sandra. What procedures would you do differently in the JP office, and what would you keep the same?
So if elected for Justice of the Peace, my goal is to come in to learn from the team. I believe that coming in and changing things when you're new to the position, you need to hear from the constituents that are there, the workers that are there that have been performing the job. Recently, I went and shadowed several judges Judge Beth Smith on inquest, as well as Judge Burns and Judge Cable. And in doing so, I found that one of the things that we have happening in our courts is we have a lot of kids coming into court for juvenile issues. And so what I would like to do is continue to help them with their situations at school, continue to help them with their situation at school, as well as provide opportunities to combat the fentanyl issue that is currently having in our school district.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Sandra. Now I'm going to turn to Karen. Would you like for me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay. What procedures would you do differently in the JP office, and what would you keep the same?
Like I said, Judge Doyle is leaving the office in very good shape. So there is not a whole lot to change in that office other than, like I said, to make it more accessible to you as citizens. Bring it up to technology, putting things up on the website. And it is an opportunity to change a little bit. The procedure is I would like to implement a teen court. A teen court will help teens stay out of trouble and get them on the right track. It's been highly successful in precincts all around the county.
Very good, thank you. Now we're going to move to round 3, and you'll get 1 minute each for this question. And I'm going to start with Karen. There has been discussion that judicial races like Texas Supreme Court and Justice of the Peace should be nonpartisan positions. What is your stand on this issue and why?
This has been an ongoing issue since, I believe, in Texas in the 1800s. I believe the reason that Texas chose partisan positions for Justice of the Peace and other judges is because they wanted the people to elect versus having others in power, just putting someone in there that would benefit themselves. So I know judges, we are impartial. We are fair when we get into the position, but we do have to choose a party to stand on, to put our name on the ballot. I am conservative, and that's why I chose the Republican ballot.
Okay, very good. Sandra, I'm going to repeat the question. There has been discussion that judicial races, such as Texas Supreme Court and Justice of the Peace, should be made nonpartisan positions. What is your stance on this issue and why?
Personally, I believe that the JP office should be nonpartisan because as a judge, you're going to serve each and every one. And so, again, I believe that it should be nonpartisan. However, my view is that as a running on a Democrat ticket, that it should not have a Democrat or Republican assigned to it. Because, again, you're going to serve each and every one in the community, and that should not have a reflection of what party you're affiliated with. So that's my stance on that.
Very good. Thank you all. Now we're going to move to your closing statements. You'll each be given 1 minute for your closing statement to the audience. I'm going to start with you, Sandra.
Thank you. I believe I have the courage and compassion to serve as your justice of the peace. I have the educational background and the necessary foundation to apply sound judgment in making decisions that will affect people's lives, and I listen to people's concerns. I believe a great leader should spend time with the people they serve. So I ask for your vote and your support during early voting, October 24th through November 4th, and on Election Day, November 8th, as you head to the polls. For more information about me running for Justice of the Peace, visit BryantForBudaTexas.com. Texas is spelled out, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to turn to Karen. Karen, we'll have your closing statement. You'll get 1 minute.
I offer you practical experience who can hit the ground running. Like I said, I have prepared for this job for over 26 years. What you will get from voting for me is someone who has the right experience, someone who wholeheartedly wants to serve you for the right reasons. I am here for you. I'm available to you. This is not a stepping stone for me. It is not just another office to put on my resume. I am a simple, hard worker. I will work full-time, actually more than full-time. I will be available. This job is about applying the rule of law and to be fair and just for you. That is the number one responsibility of a justice of the peace or any judge. I will rule on each case separately on its own merits.
Wow, folks, let's give these guys a round of applause. Can we just say that we don't have any long-winded justices of the peace candidates? These folks, they cut right to the chase. Thank you guys so much. Another round of applause. All right. Everybody, you get a 5-minute break. So make that break, buy those tickets, and we will start. I know, another shameless promotion. I'll stop when I get told they're all purchased. We will start at 7:25 for our state representative. We have our County Commissioner, Mark Jones, who's also running for County Judge. We have candidates that are here. We have Kelly Higgins, who's running for District Attorney. And we've got Bill Henry is here, District Court Judge. As well as Dan O'Brien. I saw you, there you are, Dan. Also on the ballot this year as well. So, did I miss any elected officials? All right. Well, okay. Well, getting on with the rest of our evening, the state representative for District 45. The duties of the legislature include consideration of proposed laws and resolutions, consideration of proposed constitutional amendments for submission to the voters, and appropriation of all funds for the operation of state government. Your candidates for State Representative District 45 are Aaron Zwiener. Aaron Zwiener is an author, educator, and conservationist, and 3-time Jeopardy winner, currently serving her 2nd term in the Texas House. When reelected, she'll continue to fight for well-funded schools, common sense gun laws, and reproductive rights. Representative Zwiener believes all Texans should have access to health care, equal opportunity, and safe and healthy communities. Dr. Michelle Lopez has a record of serving our Hays County community for nearly 2 decades. As a wife, mom, educator, and small business owner, she leads with strength and integrity, guided by her faith. Michelle and her family have called Hays County their home for 24 years. She would be honored to represent her friends, neighbors, and fellow citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your candidates for State House Representative, District 45.
Thank you, John. Okay, thank you for being here as candidates for state representative. We're going to have a total of 5 questions. I'm going to start with an opening statement for each of you for 1 minute. And then we're going to go into the 5 questions, and you'll have a closing statement for 1 minute. So I'm going to get started with you, Michelle, with your opening statement for 1 minute.
Great, thank you, and good evening to everyone. And thank you for all who are here and for the Buda Area Chamber of Commerce for hosting this evening. You know, my story here starts in 1998 as a newlywed wife and my husband. We came and purchased a home in Kyle, and we had to use a paper map to get to Buda City Hall, old Buda City Hall, to put up our utilities and set that up. And really, we loved and remembered just things about the community that were great. The local parish was like the church next to my grandparents. The barbecues every weekend on the square were just like the ones that my husband remembered from back home. Fast forward 25 years. We're a family of 3, and we love Hays County. It's become the place where we know that families are looking to flourish, whether that's good education, whether that's a good economy, strong job growth, and all of those pieces. I am Michelle Lopez. I am a conservative, Christian, liberty-loving Latina who is a wife, mom, educator, small business owner, and I'm ready to represent my neighbors, my friends, my community here in Hays County.
Very good, thank you, Michelle. Now we're going to turn to Erin for your opening statement.
Thank you so much. I am Representative Erin Zwiener, and my values are healthy communities, inclusivity, and common sense government. When I think about how I see the future of Texas, thinking of my daughter's future is my North Star. I want her to grow up exploring the same beautiful hill country I did as a child. I want her to have access to a great education, quality health care, and I want her to be treated with dignity and respect by her community, no matter who she grows up to be. Unfortunately, Texas is not on track for a lot of these things right now. I listened with a little bit of envy to some of the earlier candidates because they got to focus on local issues alone. And the challenge of the state legislature is we have to do both. We have to work on these local issues, but we also have to deal with the big partisan issues that gets everyone riled up. And Texas, unfortunately, has jumped off a cliff on these partisan issues. We've banned access to abortion in all but the most extreme circumstances, and we need to get back on track focusing on Texas's lives instead of picking partisan fights.
Thank you very much. All right, so again, we're going to have a total of 5 questions. Each question will be given 2 minutes, and then you'll each be given 1 minute for your closing statement in case there were information that you didn't get to deliver during the course of your questions. So I'm going to start with question number 1, and I'm going to start with Erin. What do you see are the 3 most important issues that you will focus on as state representative?
Thank you for that. I started to touch on one. One is we need to restore reproductive freedom in Texas. Right now, if a teenager is sexually assaulted and she does not want to have to deliver her rapist baby, she has to travel out of the state of Texas to get a termination. That's despicable. If somebody becomes pregnant, wanted pregnancy, desperately wants that baby, and discovers at their anatomy scan that fetus will not survive, she has to either carry that fetus to term in Texas and deal with that grief of carrying a baby that will never live, or she has to leave the state of Texas. That is cruel and despicable. Y'all, I didn't run for office to work on issues like abortion, but they are the issues that have been forced upon us by the GOP majority in the Texas legislature right now. And I am going to fight back against that with every breath I have because it's wrong. Another big issue is gun safety. You know, after the mass shootings in El Paso and Odessa, promises were made about things like closing loopholes on background checks, something supported by over 90% of Texans. Things like red flag laws, so that if somebody shows warning signs that they are going to harm others, someone can go to a court and go through a process to have those firearms removed. Promises were made, and then promises were broken. And then this year, we saw what happened in Uvalde. And I hear from so many parents who are terrified for the future of their children and terrified for their safety. So this is an election where we have a chance to send a strong message that it's time to support common sense gun safety. And on a more local issue, I'll mention growth. Hays County's underlying challenge is growth, and I am committed to working with our county, with our local governments, our cities, to give them every tool they can to manage growth so that things make sense for our environment, for our existing community, and for our future.
Very good, thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn to Michelle. Michelle, what do you see are the 3 most important issues that you will focus on if you are elected as state representative?
Thank you. As I've spent time over the summer and this fall knocking on doors and visiting with many of the residents in District 45, education seems to be the primary issue that resonates with most people. When we're looking at what we can do to ensure that our students are going to graduate academically competitive, that they are going to ensure that parents are empowered and retain decision-making in how and what and where those additional items are taught, or if they're taught, then those things have resonated with the residents here. When we talk about education, it also is about choice. What is it that our parents have as a choice for that educational environment that their child will do? What is going to help them excel and exceed and achieve what they would like to academically? The second area that seems to really resonate as well these last few months are the issues of job growth and economy. And those are issues where hard-working Texans right now are paying more and more for gas and groceries and essentials, and their wallets are becoming slimmer and slimmer. We all have to learn to live within our means, and the Texas government, our state government, should do the same. I will be there standing for our residents, standing for our Texans, so that we are finding ways to do so, to spend appropriately, but to also ensure that our residents in 45 can have the appropriate amount of funding to support their families, to be flourishing and prosperous here. And lastly, safety. Safety is a huge concern that continues to also be a point of contention among the residents. We've heard earlier about the issues of fentanyl coming across our borders, also the issues of trafficking. All of the things that create safe neighborhoods for us are the areas that I would also put my efforts toward as your state representative.
Very good, thank you. Now we're going to go to question number 2, and again, you'll each get 2 minutes. I'm going to start with Michelle. Traffic is a major concern here in the Buda-Kyle region. How would you help on this issue if elected a member of the legislature?
It's definitely the topic of the evening and the topic for all of us. But traffic is one of those issues that it does take a partnership. It takes the relationship building from the person as the state representative to work with the regional, the local entities, and ensure that we are finding the right ways. What are the transportation plans that are in place? How can they mesh? One of the things I do as a small business owner is that I've been an executive coach and a team coach for a number of years now, and I teach people how to listen, understand the concerns, and come forward with those creative solutions, the things that really, when we're listening to the people, we have a chance to find the solutions that work best. So for road work, it is what I can do to perhaps limit any obstacles that would be at the state level would be very important, but also building the relationships to find what are the solutions that creatively fit the needs that are best met in 45.
Very good, thank you. Aaron, I'll repeat the question. Traffic is a major concern here in the Buda-Kyle region. How would you help on this issue as a member of the legislature?
Thank you for that question. So first and foremost, I serve on the House Appropriations Committee, which is the committee that oversees the budget for the state of Texas. And when it comes to roads and in Hays County and how the state can help, the number one way is dollars. The number one way is making sure that we are funding projects. And I have been supportive of Hays County getting the dollars they need to move forward on projects. But the other complicating factor is environmental planning and road planning that gets done through the Texas Department of Transportation. It's concerning for me to hear folks talk about trying to tighten the belt of our state government because our belt is already really tight. We tightened our budget dramatically in 2011, and we have never allowed spending to catch back up to meet the infrastructure needs of our community. So the number one delay that roads tend to face in Hays County is staff time from the Texas Department of Transportation to finish the planning process. And staff time is low because we've had artificial barriers to bringing on more road engineers. And so we're projecting a budget surplus next session. Some of those dollars need to go in us expanding the planning capacity of the Texas Department of Transportation. We are a growing state, and we cannot pretend that we can keep the same number of people doing twice the work. And I guess I woke Siri up. Sorry about that. So the critical thing is making sure that we invest in the planning by building a more robust state infrastructure, a state planning infrastructure, and making sure we can keep road engineers in their jobs by paying them appropriately. The last thing, again, is making sure our county and our cities have the tools they need to manage growth, because when you're adding people at the rate we are, it's very tough for the roads to keep up, even if you have all the resources you need. So I want to make sure City of Buda, City of Kyle, Hays County can make sure that growth happens at a rate that they can manage with the support of infrastructure.
Great, thank you, Erin. And maybe we should give Siri her 2 minutes. I don't know.
I'm not sure she has much to add, but.
Okay, now we're going to move along to question number 3. And I'm going to start with Aaron on this one. It's going to be 2 minutes. Water, as you know, is a major concern in Hays County and elsewhere. Both the protection and availability as it relates to growth. What are your plans for dealing with this very pressing issue?
Thank you for that question. One thing I have done already and will keep fighting for is carrying legislation to allow rainwater collection and gray water reuse systems to be exempt from property taxes. That's something we already have in place for solar panels. You are not taxed on the value of solar panels on your home, and we need to recreate that same incentive mechanism for rainwater collection and for gray water reuse systems so that we encourage people to use less water. The other big thing we need to do, again, comes back to those planning tools. Right now, if a neighborhood decides to build in the ETJ of Buda, hypothetically, I don't know, maybe the Milestone subdivision, the city of Buda has very few tools to work with that community. Most of what they have are incentives. They can say, if you come work with us, if you agree to be annexed in the future, maybe we'll give you water and wastewater. And that's their main negotiation tool. And so every single thing they have to beg for. I would like to see a space where our cities and their ETJ, and potentially even our counties in the unincorporated area, can say, we are going to require that this subdivision meet a certain standard of water conservation. I think that is absolutely reasonable in a place like Hays County. That's something cities can already do within their city limits. But I want to put, especially in fast growth areas like Hays County, where we have urban style development happening outside city limits, I want them to have the tools to insist that our developers build to a high conservation standard. So we have a lot of folks working on solutions to bring more water into Hays County, but water is a finite resource, and there is no reason we should be wasting the water we do. So I want to give our counties and our cities more tools to manage that resource and require development to be water efficient.
Great, thank you, Erin. So Michelle, I'll ask you the same question. Water is a major concern in Hays County and elsewhere, both the protection and availability to handle the growth that we're experiencing. What would be your plans in the state legislature to address this issue?
Yes, thank you. You know, as you heard a little earlier about City of Kyle, I was on that council as well as we were addressing what the future water needs were. You know, it is about being smart and strategic and thinking forward so that we know what are the issues, how do we address the growth and the water. We need to, as a state legislator, I would ensure that we are removing any of those statutory authority issues that would prevent someone at the local level to make the decisions they need to make. And so ensuring that there are no obstacles, but that it can be an issue that is addressed collaboratively, but also smartly. You know, if there are things that are needed, then we should look toward the experts and ensure that we are providing that. If we need to provide some additional support for any of the growth that's happening, that those are the things I would be looking to the experts to ensure that we have the right plan that fits not only now, but fits the future.
Very good, thank you both for that. Now we're going to turn to question number 4, and you'll each get 2 minutes. I'm going to start with Michelle. The question is, the Buda Area Chamber of Commerce is the leading advocate for the business community. How do you plan to work with area chambers and economic development organizations?
So this has been something that has been a very near and dear to my heart. While I was on City Council, I served for 2 years as the chair of the Economic Development Committee for the city, and we were really rapidly growing as the county continues to grow today. It is in creating the partnerships that we will look forward. So it's not only even looking locally, but what are those regional needs so that cities can work together and collaborate to bring in the projects that would really benefit our community? How do we have a diverse group of offerings for jobs? Because it is with our local businesses, our local economy, that we can create those robust opportunities for families to move here, to live here, and to prosper here. So creating those relationships, continuing to have regular meetings, and being very present in the community is important to me. By being present, being involved, as I have continued to be for 20 years, then I'm able to work with and develop and strengthen the relationships that help us to identify what the needs are and help us to find the solutions.
Very good, thank you. So I'll turn now to you, Aaron. Again, I'll repeat the question. The Buda Area Chamber of Commerce is the leading advocate for the business community. How do you plan to work with area chambers and economic development organizations?
Thank you so much for that question. My office has always had an open door policy with all of our regional chambers of commerce and have been grateful for their guidance and advice as we move forward through issues. One of my philosophies of governing at the state legislative level is to really trust the locals, and to trust the locals to know what is happening in their own backyard and to support them as they seek assistance in various types of projects. And so we have written letters of support at the request of our various chambers of commerce for everything from affordable housing projects in the Dripping Springs area to industrial facilities seeking some of the governor's economic incentive funds. And we've been successful in advocating for those programs. Now, the biggest challenge I see for economic development and for the business community in Hays County, again, is tied to that issue of growth. And so I think one of the most important things we can do, and that I hear consistently from my chambers, is help support updating the infrastructure to match the needs of the community. And that's something that I have fought for at every level. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the challenge of being in the state legislature is we have to bridge the local and then these hyper-partisan state and federal issues. We have to handle both. And I think that's something I've been successful in doing. One thing we were able to do this last session is get funding for a new district court in Hays County. What does that have to do with the business community? Well, if you have a civil dispute between businesses in Hays County, those were disputes that often took years to resolve because court dates kept getting pushed into the future and getting bumped for the criminal docket. So I'm going to keep working to make sure Hays County has the infrastructure it needs to be a place where businesses and communities can thrive.
Okay, very good. Now we're going to turn to our last question of the evening for you two. And you're going to get 3 minutes to answer this question because it is a 3-part question. As you know, school funding is a major part of each of our property tax bill. What can be done in the legislature to keep property taxes down? That's the first part of the question. Then, what is your position on how schools should be funded or might be funded, and what could be changed in the legislature, or would you keep it the same? And the third part of that is what can be done for teacher pay and retention?
Thank you for that question. I'm glad we're going to get to talk about education in more depth. When I was a public school kid in the state of Texas, the state paid approximately 60% of the cost of my education. When I took office, that number was down to 34%. So how did schools pay for education? Well, it was a mix. They let property taxes go up, and they cut corners at the cost of our children. So we have to, as a state, keep our commitment to our school kids, and we're not. We are not doing that right now. So one of the challenges in the legislature is we budget on a 2-year cycle. We can't commit a future legislature to funding unless we pass a constitutional amendment. And that's exactly what I support, passing a constitutional amendment to require the state of Texas to fund at least 50% of the cost of our public schools. And that is fundamentally the only way to keep our property taxes from going through the roof year after year after year. That element of making sure the state pays for its fair share for public schools is critical. Now, in addition, I do support some other measures. I carried legislation last session to double your homestead tax exemption. That is the part of your property taxes and your home that you cannot be taxed on. I filed legislation to double it from $25,000 to $50,000. My legislation did not move forward, but we managed to leverage the Republican chair of the Ways and Means Committee into changing his bill to look like mine. He didn't quite go to $50,000, but he went to $40,000, and that's saving every Hays County homeowner about $150 on their property taxes. Is that enough? No, it's not. To do enough, we have to fix the school funding problem. And I want to clear up any misconceptions. We have the money. We have a budget surplus this session. We also have places where we are throwing away dollars that could be better spent on public education. We can fund our public schools. We just have to make a commitment as a legislature that our kids are more important. And so that is something I have fought for and will continue to fight for. The question also asked about teacher retention and teacher pay. That's a giant challenge in the state of Texas. I already spoke to one person in this audience who told me they were a former teacher. We do not pay our teachers enough to keep them. We lose the most talented people because they get burnt out and they can make more money in the private sector. We did pass legislation in 2019 to provide some extra funding for teacher pay, and last session I carried the rider to the budget that protected those teacher pay raises so they would not lose it in the next year. In addition, we have to make sure our teachers feel supported. I have talked to educators in Hays County who feel like they have a target on their back because of extremists trying to make education partisan instead of just supporting our teachers. If we want our kids to have a great education, we have to make sure the teachers feel comfortable and safe in the profession.
Great, thank you, Erin, for that answer. And now I'm going to turn to Michelle, and I'll repeat the question for you. School funding is a major portion of each of our property tax bills. What can the legislature do to keep property taxes down? First part of the question. What is your position on how the state should pay and fund education? And then number 3, what can be done for teacher pay and retention?
Great, thank you so much. This is an important piece of what we all see is the future of our state. You know, I come from a family of K through 12 teachers, administrators, whether it's my parents or my aunts and uncles or even my mom's mom who was in the classroom. And I didn't expect to be an educator in higher education, but I have been for nearly 30 years. It is the foundation and the core of what creates the future and a prosperous future for us. When we talk about funding, those are the issues that really, when we talk about property taxes, we're going to have a surplus. We do need to consider what is appropriate. How do we use these funds in the best way? I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I heard that we are allocating $16,000 per child every year. And that increase has been, 880%, right around there, over the last probably 20 years. But we've only increased teacher pay about 110%. And so we're very much lagging on what that needs to be. How do we look at things like exemptions? How do we look at the current funding structure? We currently have those recapture funds, but also we're spending dollars out of certain communities in the districts, and they're going into a larger bucket, but do we have the best spending practices for those dollars? What can we do to return? Is it something about looking at the maintenance and operation, for example, so that we can return some of those dollars? But it would be incumbent upon me to work with those who do have good ideas about how we return as much money as possible, but continue to balance the needs of our children in our public schools and the needs of our families. Because if we don't get this right, if we don't ensure that we are properly funding our schools and education, that we are properly funding teachers and their pay so that they too can flourish and live here in Texas and in our districts, then we lose out at every avenue that we go for the future. So anything that I could do as a state representative to find those solutions would be what I would focus on.
Terrific. Thank you, Michelle. Now we are going to turn to our closing statements. You'll each be given 1 minute to make your final statements. And I'm going to start with you, Erin. You have 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I have loved serving as the state representative for House District 45. I was not someone many people ever expected to win. But after my first session, Texas Monthly described me as the savviest of the freshmen in the Texas House. And I've used that savvy to advocate both on state and federal level issues and also to advocate for the people of Hays County. Some accomplishments. I passed legislation my first session to get Buda approved for aquifer storage and recovery project. I created a new district court for Hays County. I secured an extra $100 million for student financial aid in higher education. And I expanded workplace sexual harassment protections. That's work I'm going to continue to keep doing. I've been endorsed by the Texas Farm Bureau, the Texas Medical Association, the Texas Realtors, the AFL-CIO, American Federation of Teachers, the Texas State Teachers Association, the Sierra Club, and Planned Parenthood. I hope I'll have your support as well.
Thank you very much, Erin. Now, Michelle, your closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. What I have is a record of loving this county and serving this county in many regards. And I bring with me those experiences of a small business owner, of an educator, and someone who will show up every single day to represent and stand for the issues and concerns that are present in our district and for each and every one of our residents. There are difficult decisions that are coming this legislative session, and I'm not afraid to stand up and to fight for our residents. This is my community. The future for my son, for your children, your grandchildren is at stake. We need educators who feel confident, but who also can concentrate on teaching. And I'll leave the parents with their decision-making for those other issues that are not related to the academics. We need a safe community, and why I've been endorsed by most of the law enforcement in this area, and we need a strong economy. I can do that. I've done that before, and I'm ready to serve as your next state representative for House District 45. It would be my honor to represent you, my friends, my neighbors, and this community. Thank you.
Excellent job. Excellent. Stay right there a second, guys. Oh, stay right there a second.
John, I have an unrelated question to the forum. Will there be mutton busting at the rodeo?
Absolutely, there will be mutton busting. By the way, the weight limit is 60 pounds or less. So some of you that are thinking about it. Okay, I just want this concludes our formal portion tonight. And I just want to say thank you to all the candidates for being here and for doing such a great job. Hays County is in great shape. We've got some great candidates. I do want to, and I don't want to necessarily say end on a sad note, but Buda lost a giant today. Renee Akala passed while we were having this forum. So Remy Fallon, who was on our city council, Helen's Casa Alde, he passed this evening. So I'd like a moment of silence on behalf of Renee. Thank you. I want to thank our timekeeper, Jim Collins, and I want to thank Donna Cartwright for being a great moderator. Your Buda Chamber of Commerce, we welcome this opportunity to be able to host these kind of forums. Thanks for the great turnout. Just always remember every year, about a week or so before early voting, plan for this event because we will be doing it for city council races all the way up to, well, we can't get the president guys down here, but anyway. Be sure, and I want to thank Treehouse Productions, David Patterson, Trevor Zajac. Folks, this has been a great evening. Don't forget the rodeo on Friday and Saturday night. Candidates, thank y'all. This has been a great event. I want to thank all of you for being here. We'll see you. Be sure early voting starts. Sandra, you told us, October 24th, and it goes through November 4th, Election Day, November 8th. Go vote.